Hi, I'm Dr. Bec Bennett and welcome back to the AIMER video series. AIMER is a practical, research-informed program designed to support hearing care professionals like you and me in delivering truly holistic hearing care. If this is your first time tuning in, I suggest heading back to video 1 so that you can follow through the program with us. But if you've been walking through the program with us, then welcome back. I'm glad you're here. In today's session, we're looking at video number 5, Holding the Space, what to say when clients open up. We're turning our focus onto a topic that many of you have asked about. Often when I'm at conferences, clinicians will say to me, I don't know what to say when a client opens up about how they're really feeling. Or they'll ask, how do I respond in a way that's supportive, not awkward, and that builds trust? These questions deserve more than just a passing mention, so we're going to dedicate 2 full videos to this topic so that we can really unpack this skill together. Here, in part 1, in this video, we're going to focus on the foundation, how to listen, how to tune into what your client is really sharing, and how to respond with empathy, not sympathy. We'll explore what empathy looks like in real conversations, what it sounds like, and why it matters so much, especially when clients bring those kind of big emotional challenges into the appointment space. Then, in part 2, in the next video, we're going to build on this by exploring how to tailor empathy to your client's unique story, how to validate their emotional experiences without accidentally dismissing them, and how to gently ask what kind of support your client is hoping for. We'll also look at ways to manage our own discomfort in those emotionally charged moments so that we can stay present, grounded, and helpful even when the conversation feels tough. Let's get started. So this video is all about how we respond when a client discloses the emotional, social, or mental health impacts of their hearing loss. Some people are naturally gifted at these kinds of conversations. You know the ones. Those warm, open individuals who make you feel instantly comfortable. For many, these skills come from lived experience. These people may have had family members who encouraged emotional expression, or perhaps they've supported others through tough times and learned how to be present in conversation. Then there are the rest of us, those who weren't taught how to recognize our own thoughts and emotions when we were younger, let alone how to hold space for someone else's. That was me too. 15 years ago, I went back to uni and completed a graduate diploma in counselling because I wanted to grow these skills for my clients and for myself. And it's honestly one of the best decisions I've ever made. It's helped me to become a better hearing care professional and also a better partner, friend, daughter, mum. These are transferable skills and they're all about being human. So let's explore what this looks like in the audiology setting. Let's be honest, for many of us, this is the sticking point. What happens if we ask about well-being and a client says, actually, I'm not coping, or I feel anxious all the time, or I feel rejected, isolated, lonely? These are very real and common experiences for people with hearing loss. And sometimes, as clinicians, we're left wondering, what do I do with that information? Over many years of qualitative research and interviews, hearing care professionals have consistently told us how challenging it can be to raise the topic of well-being during appointments. They've said, I think we all just hope they bring it up rather than us having to raise it. Or they've said, I don't know what words to use to start that sort of conversation without it sounding clinical or awkward. Or they've said, we don't get taught how to do that. It's not really something we've had training in. But all too often, they also say, it's not that we don't care. It's that we just don't always know what to say or what to do with that conversation. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Here's the thing. It's not our job to fix the situation. It's not our job to fix someone's pain. We can't take away their grief or anxiety or depression. But what we can do, and what makes a real difference, is to create a safe space where those experiences a welcome. To show up with empathy, to listen, to validate their experiences, to show them that they are not alone. Because too often, people with hearing loss have had their experiences diminished. They've been told, it's not that bad, or why don't you just put your hearing aids in, or surely you can hear me. We know that hearing loss isn't always fixed by hearing aids. Even with the best tech, attention, and effort, communication can still be hard for some people. Social interaction can still be draining. Frustration and exclusion can still occur. So part of our job is to validate, to let clients know that what you're feeling makes sense. Sometimes that means sitting in the grief with them, grieving what they've lost, the music that they used to hear, the friendships that have faded. Sometimes it means laughing with them, like when a cochlear implant processor magnet jumps off their head onto the metal pole in the bus. These shared stories are part of their journey. Sometimes it means comforting them after they've misheard something important and they've been left feeling embarrassed or like they've hurt someone they care about. Helping them to develop new coping strategies so they don't have to sit in that discomfort next time is a really important part of our role. And sometimes it means gently breaking hard news that their hearing loss is permanent and that there's no pill or cure to fix it. These conversations can be hard, but they can also be some of the most meaningful parts of our clinical work. Here's what I want you to take away. Yes, some clients will open up about emotional challenges, and some clients won't, and that's okay. It's not our job to fix their hurt or their pain. Your presence, your words, and your willingness to listen, that's what matters. And finally, it's not about perfection. It's about being real and making space for your clients to feel seen. Let's walk through the skills that will help you feel more confident in doing just that. When a client opens up about their well-being, how we respond really matters. And while every conversation is different, there are 4 key steps that can help guide our response. 1, active listening. Listening not just for the content, but for the deeper message beneath it. 2, responding with empathy, recognizing and reflecting how they feel. 3, validating their experience, showing them their feelings make sense and are worth your time. 4, understanding their needs, gently exploring what kind of support or action they're hoping for next. These are skills that you can practice and refine over time. First, let's look at active listening. Active listening is more than just hearing the words. It's about being fully present with your body, your mind, and your attention. That means eye contact, facing the person, mirroring their posture or gestures, using facial expressions that match their story. If they're sharing something difficult, your face should show care and concern. We can also use micro cues, things like nodding or small verbal encourages. I see, go on. These may seem small, but they indicate that you're truly listening, paying attention, and you're in the story with them. And don't forget the power of stillness and silence. Pausing without rushing to fill the space can give the clients the time they need to think, reflect, and really open up. Now, I'll be honest, this one took me a while, and I dare say is a skill I'm still working on. Stillness and silence do not come naturally to me. But with practice, I've come to really value those pauses because they often lead to the most meaningful insights. Let's talk about paraphrasing versus reflective listening, 2 related but distinct skills. So paraphrasing is where you restate what the client has said in your own words. It helps confirm that you understood the facts. For example, the client might say, I just avoid going to restaurants now. It's too hard to follow conversations. The clinician might say, so you've stopped going out to eat because it's become really difficult to hear when you're there. However, reflective listening takes things a step further. You're not just repeating, You're picking up on the emotion behind their words and reflecting that back. So, same client statement. I just avoid going to restaurants now. It's too hard to follow conversations. But using reflective listening, the clinician might say, it sounds like you're feeling left out, maybe even a bit frustrated or isolated in those situations. And this helps the client to feel truly seen. It can also help them to process how they're feeling in real time. Sometimes we'll get it right and the client will say, yes, that's exactly how I feel. Sometimes we'll get it wrong and the client will say, no, I don't feel embarrassed in those situations. It's not my fault. I feel frustrated at the person that's not bothering to help. But this is still a beautiful opportunity because it allows us to say, I misunderstood, but now I see it's frustration you're feeling. And again, that deepens that connection and deepens that trust, shows them that we're seeking to truly understand. So, paraphrasing is about facts and clarification. Reflective listening is about emotion and connection. Both are useful, and together they form the backbone of empathy in action. So one of the most important shifts we can make is learning to listen. Learning to listen for what the client is trying to share. Not just what we want to hear, but what they want us to hear. I feel like as hearing healthcare clinicians, too often we're listening with a filter. We're thinking, what's the diagnosis here? What do I need to document? How do I keep the appointment on time? Which hearing aids are going to best align with the issues they've been raising? I get it. We're busy. But when we're caught up in our own internal checklists, we miss the heart of what the client is trying to tell us. And they can usually sense it as well. And it doesn't feel very nice opening up to someone who's only half listening. Let me give you an example. You're taking a case history and the client is describing a long sequence of events, a GP visit, a hospital wait, a referral, maybe their daughter driving them around, a cancelled appointment, and eventually an ENT surgery. It's a long, detailed story. And while they're speaking, you might be mentally filing chronic ear infections, tympanoplasty, client relies on daughter for transport, possibly rehab goal including hearing in medical appointments. You're focused on the facts. But if you stay in that frame of mind, you risk missing the story underneath, the frustration, the exhaustion, the gratitude, the actual emotional meaning of what they're sharing. And when the story ends, they look up, waiting to see if you've received the story they shared. So how do you respond? How do you show them that you heard? What's the first thing that comes out of your mouth? Is it detail on the audiological aspects of their challenging experience they've just shared with you? Or is it that sounded really tough. It sounds like you've been through a lot lately. Are you responding with empathy or are you getting straight to business? You could say nothing about the story and jump straight into the audiology stuff, saying things like, oh, it sounds like you had a tympanoplasty. Oh, which ENT did you see? Oh, let's get started with the hearing test to see if the hearing's changed since then. Or you could say, that sounds like a really frustrating time. Or it sounds like you were really well supported by your ENT. Or it's great that your daughter was able to work with you and support you during that time. One approach creates connection. The other creates disconnection. You don't need me to tell you which is which. Your client might not remember the test procedure, the exact recommendations, or the hearing thresholds, but they will remember whether they felt seen, heard, and understood during your audiology appointments. And that starts with showing them that you really listened. It doesn't take long. A simple, short sentence to show that you listened to the emotional part of their story is all they need to feel seen. Put simply, Your clients won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Let's look at step 2, responding with empathy. I want to take a moment to unpack something that's really important in how we respond to our clients. And that's the difference between empathy and sympathy. These two words are often used interchangeably, but they're actually very different in how they feel and in the impact they have. Empathy is about feeling with someone. It's when we step into their emotional experience and say, I hear you. I get that this is hard. I am here with you. Sympathy, on the other hand, is feeling for someone. It often comes from a good place. We want to comfort them, but it can create distance. It can sound like, oh, you poor thing, that must be awful, without really staying with the emotion they're trying to share. Here's an example. Imagine your client says to you, I feel so alone. No one really understands what hearing loss is like. A sympathetic response might be, oh, that must be so hard, but hey, at least you've got new hearing aids now. It tries to comfort, but it shifts away from the client's actual feeling. It skips over the discomfort and tries to rush in to reassure or fix. An empathetic response might sound more like, that sounds really isolating. You're not alone in this. I'm really glad you shared that with me. It sits with the feeling. It shows the client that their experience really matters and that you're not afraid to go there with them. Empathy builds trust. It creates a safe space for clients to say the hard things, the real things, without fear of being shut down. Because let's face it, many of our clients with hearing loss have had their experience minimized for years. They've been told things like, just wear your hearing aids. You're probably not trying hard enough. Turn your hearing aids up. So when we respond with empathy, when we really listen and stay in that feeling with them, it's one of the most powerful things we can do. We don't have to fix it. We don't have to say the perfect thing. We just have to be present and sit in that emotion with them. I'd like to show you this video by Brené Brown that really beautifully describes the difference between sympathy and empathy.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
I love this video. I've watched it so many times, but every time I watch it, I feel like I learn something new. I especially love the part where the gazelle goes, "Ooh, bad, huh? No, want a sandwich?" This part resonates with me, I think, because I feel like this was me as a new grad audiologist. Here's the audiogram. Yes, you've got a hearing loss. Bam. Yes, it's moderate to severe. Bam. Yes, it's permanent. Bam. Yes, your wife was right. Bam. No, there's nothing that can be done to fix it. Bam. You just need to manage it with technology and behavioral training. Bam. And any kind of emotional response, anything that I couldn't fix with amplification or training, no way. Change the conversation back to the things I can work with. Okay, I never offered my client a sandwich to distract them from the conversation, but I certainly used offerings to change the focus back to my agenda and my comfort zone. And the gazelles, at least, do you do this too? Bad, yeah? But at least you've caught the hearing loss early. You'll get better outcomes. Big? No, at least hearing aids are smaller than they used to be. Cure? No, but hearing aid technology is way better than it used to be. Rather than covering up the client's attempts for emotional connection and recognition, what if we worked on our skills in hearing the emotion, sitting with it, and showing up with empathy? So as you reflect on this, ask yourself, when my clients talk about emotions, do I try and distract away from the feeling, or do I sit with it and explore it? And if you find yourself thinking, I'm not sure I always get this right, then that's okay. Neither do I. None of us get it right every time. Empathy is a skill, and it can be learned, practiced, and strengthened over time. And you're already doing just that by watching this video. The more you learn, the more knowledgeable you'll be, the more equipped you'll be to develop and practice these skills, and the better you'll get. Practice, not perfection, is what we're looking for. So what might empathy look like in the audiology setting? Well, we have general empathetic responses that are a great starting point. Things like, that sounds really tough. That must be really hard for you. You're making total sense. You must feel so hopeless when that happens. I'm worried for you. You're in a tough spot here. Now, I'm not suggesting empathy is just memorizing a bunch of lines. That would miss the point. But when you're just getting started, it can be really helpful to see what empathy can look like in our setting. These examples give you a sense of tone, warmth, and presence. And from there, you can start to find your own words and choose phrases that are most appropriate for the specific situation that you're in. Because empathy is less about saying the right thing and more about being with someone in their experience. Let's reflect for a moment. Which one of these phrases really resonated with you? Which ones felt most natural for your style of communication? You might want to tuck a few away in your mind, not as scripts, but as starting points. So when the moment arises, you can respond from a genuine place. You might not like any of these, and you might like to write down some totally different ones that feel more like you. You may be surprised just how powerful a simple, sincere, empathetic statement can be in the moment. So before we wrap up today's video, let's take a moment to practice. I'd like to invite you to try something simple but powerful. So on the screen here, I'm going to show you 3 real-life client statements, things you might hear in any routine audiology appointment. Your job is to pause after each one and try responding out loud, not with a solution, not with reassurance, just empathy. So you could try one of the phrases we've just explored, or you could come up with your own. Let's give it a go. So for the first one, imagine that you're in the clinic and your client says, "I've stopped going to family dinners. It's just too hard to follow the conversation these days." Great. So for the second one, imagine that your client says to you, "I feel like I'm just not myself anymore since I started losing my hearing. I'm just not the funny guy that I used to be." How did you go with that one? Responding with empathy. So for the third one, let's try this. Imagine your client says, "I don't have any friends left, dear. You tend to lose all your friends by the time you get to my age." Yeah, some of these are tricky, but they're all real. These are 3 statements that my clients have said when I've been working in the clinic. We're often faced with these sorts of situations, and we always have a choice to respond with empathy or to brush over them. So how did that feel for you? Did you find that the words flowed, or did you feel a bit unsure? Either way, that's okay. Empathy is a muscle, and the more you practice, even just one sentence or 2 at a time, the more natural it starts to feel and become. So, as we've seen, how we respond to a client's emotional disclosure can shape the entire therapeutic experience. We've explored what it means to truly listen, not just for the facts, but for the feelings underneath. And we've begun unpacking empathy, how it differs from sympathy, and how even small changes in our language and presence can make a profound difference. And that brings us to the end of video 5, part 1 of the holding space content. So in our next video, video 6, we're going to continue this conversation by looking at what empathy sounds like in practice. We'll explore how to tailor empathy to the client's unique story, how to validate emotion versus normalize it. We'll look at what to say when a client shares something confronting or unexpected. And we'll also talk about how we can begin to understand what kind of support our client is really looking for so that we don't default into fix-it mode every time. Because holding space isn't just about listening. It's about helping our clients feel seen, safe, and supported, even when we don't have all the answers. I'll see you in part 2. Thanks for being here.